The vast and sprawling lands of Westeros have captivated millions of minds across the globe, establishing a modern mythological landscape that feels as real as our own history. For years, audiences have traversed the frozen expanses of the far north, witnessed the shifting political betrayals of King's Landing, and felt the scorching heat of dragonfire shaping the destinies of kings and conquerors. Yet, beyond the grand halls of power and the epic battles that decide the fate of the Seven Kingdoms, there exist untold stories whispering from the dusty roads, the small villages, and the shield-hung walls of ordinary inns. It is a world where the grand tapestry of highborn lords and massive mythical beasts gives way to something far more intimate, human, and grounded. This hidden layer of George R.R. Martin's legendary universe is finally stepping out from the shadows of giants to take center stage on our screens. To truly understand how this new vision of Westeros comes to life, one must look closely at the meticulous foundations being laid by the creative minds working behind the scenes. Bringing these beloved literary creations into the physical realm is an arduous journey that requires deep reverence for the source material, an unwavering commitment to authenticity, and an intensive exploration of character dynamics. The process represents a delicate balance between fulfilling the immense expectations of a dedicated global fan base and crafting a standalone narrative that can resonate on its own emotional merits. If you want to stay updated on all the latest deep dives, behind-the-scenes secrets, and exclusive breakdowns from the world of Westeros, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The path toward redefining this universe began far from the bustling television sets and high-tech production studios, rooted instead in the quiet, historic landscapes of New Mexico. It was there, in the serene environment of Santa Fe, that showrunner Ira Parker embarked on what would become a foundational pilgrimage. Spending an entire week immersed in direct consultation with the grand architect of Westeros himself, George R. R. Martin, Parker sought to absorb the absolute essence of the world he was tasked with translating. This was not merely a casual meeting of creative minds, but a deep, focused synchronization of narrative vision designed to ensure that the soul of the original written word remained entirely uncompromised. For 7 days, the two men mapped out the emotional geography of a different kind of Westeros, discussing the intricate historical nuances, the unspoken social codes of hedge knights, and the psychological realities of characters who live day to day without the protection of massive stone fortresses or flying lizards. This intense period of preparation allowed Parker to internalize the specific atmosphere required for this project, transforming a short, focused text into a rich, living backdrop where every single detail carries weight. The creative team knew from the very beginning that the success of this monumental undertaking would ultimately rest upon the shoulders of two individuals who could embody the complex, contrasting spirit of the protagonists. The casting process became a sweeping search for talent capable of projecting both vulnerability and strength, innocence and harsh reality. Amidst the sea of hopeful actors, a young talent named Dexter Sol Ansell emerged almost immediately as an undeniable frontrunner for the pivotal role of Egg. The casting directors and producers were instantly struck by an innate quality within Dexter that perfectly mirrored the character's unique blend of hidden nobility and youthful curiosity. It was a rare spark that could not be manufactured or taught, a genuine charisma that commanded attention even in the quietest moments of an audition room. Finding the perfect Egg, however, was only one half of a highly complex creative equation. The true magic of this narrative framework relies entirely on a profound, unshakable bond between two completely different souls navigating a treacherous world together. This realization set the stage for an intense phase of chemistry readings, where the production team sought to discover the perfect companion to stand alongside Dexter, someone who could bring the towering, honorable, yet deeply flawed nature of Dunk into the physical space. It was during these high-stakes casting sessions that something extraordinary happened behind the camera, highlighting the genuine human connections that often form during the creation of great art. As different actors cycled through the auditions to read for the role of Dunk, Dexter Sol Ansell found himself completely drawn to the performance and presence of Peter Claffey. Long before the final casting decisions were officially locked in or announced to the public, young Dexter was actively rooting for Peter to secure the job, sensing an immediate, natural connection that transcended the written script. This instinctive mutual respect and early alignment of energy became the secret weapon of the production, providing a fertile foundation upon which a legendary fictional friendship could be authentically built from the ground up. By the time the cameras finally began to roll, the relationship between Peter and Dexter had already evolved far beyond the boundaries of a standard professional partnership, transforming into a genuine real-life bond that mirrored the very journey their characters were destined to undertake. As we prepare to delve deeper into the specific elements that make this rendition of the Seven Kingdoms so uniquely compelling, we begin to see the outlines of a story that is vastly different from anything that came before it. This is a narrative that deliberately strips away the grand spectacles of royal courts and catastrophic magical wars to focus on the raw, gritty reality of survival on the margins of society. It invites the audience to view a familiar world through a completely fresh lens, where the stakes are measured not by who sits upon the Iron Throne, but by whether two lonely travelers can find their next meal, secure a safe place to sleep, and maintain their personal integrity in a harsh and unforgiving landscape. The atmospheric tension is built not on the threat of global doom, but on the immediate, palpable dangers of a dusty highway, a local tournament, or a sudden confrontation with a volatile local lord. The meticulous care poured into the preparation, the casting, and the development of interpersonal relationships behind the scenes hints at an upcoming television experience that promises to be both deeply intimate and profoundly epic in its emotional scope, leaving viewers eager to discover how these foundational elements will ultimately converge to redefine the legacy of Westeros. The transition from the sprawling, high-stakes political arenas of King's Landing to the dusty, unpaved roads of the Dornish Marches and the Reach represents a deliberate and radical shift in the visual and thematic storytelling of Westeros. This specific era of the Seven Kingdoms introduces audiences to a significantly smaller, noticeably grittier, and fundamentally raw version of the continent. Operating roughly a century after the devastating civil wars that tore the ruling dynasty apart, yet long before the catastrophic events that define the main timeline. Without the overwhelming presence of massive kingdom-destroying dragons or the omnipresent threat of an apocalyptic winter from the far north, the narrative landscape shifts its focus toward the tangible, immediate realities of everyday survival in a fractured feudal society. Here, the true power dynamics of the realm are not dictated by royal decrees issued from a distant red fortress, but are instead executed by local petty lords, volatile landed knights, and the unpredictable whims of a heavily armed mercenary class. To capture this distinct, unvarnished atmosphere, showrunner Ira Parker and the creative production team made a conscious decision to strip away the polished grandeur traditionally associated with the franchise, opting instead for a tactile world-building style where every piece of armor is visibly dented, every cloak is stained with real travel dust, and every environment feels lived in and deeply affected by the physical elements. This stylistic choice directly serves the narrative as it forces the audience to adjust their expectations and realize that in this specific version of the realm, a single misplaced blow in a local tournament or a sudden misunderstanding at a muddy crossroads can carry the exact same weight as a full-scale royal rebellion. The physical world becomes an active participant in the story, emphasizing the stark isolation of the open road and the vulnerability of those who travel without a massive household guard to protect them. Within this gritty and unforgiving framework, the deeply personal dynamic between Dunk and Egg serves as the vital emotional anchor that prevents the overarching narrative from collapsing into bleak cynicism. The extraordinary creative chemistry that blossomed between Peter Claffey and Dexter Sol Ansell during their initial casting sessions was intentionally nurtured and expanded upon when the actors stepped out of the audition rooms and onto the actual filming locations. Recognizing that a forced or superficial screen friendship would instantly shatter the delicate illusion of the story, Peter and Dexter made a collaborative, concerted effort to bond extensively in real life, constructing a genuine foundation of trust, mutual respect, and shared humor that naturally bled into their daily on-camera performances. They spent their off-screen time exploring the production locations together, sharing meals, rehearsing complex dialogue during long walks, and developing an organic shorthand communication that perfectly mirrored the evolutionary arc of their fictional counterparts. This deliberate real-world investment paid massive dividends once active production commenced, allowing the actors to bypass the typical awkwardness of early filming days and immediately project an authentic, multi-layered relationship characterized by playful bickering, silent understandings, and a fiercely protective loyalty. The audience does not merely witness two actors reciting lines from a script. Instead, they observe a living, breathing partnership that feels completely earned, resilient, and capable of withstanding the immense psychological pressures of their hostile surroundings. The tension inherent in their journey is consistently heightened by the profound socioeconomic and physical contrasts between the two protagonists, creating a narrative friction that keeps every scene thoroughly engaging. Dunk, a towering, physically imposing hedge knight who grew up in the impoverished alleys of Flea Bottom, possesses an abundance of raw physical strength and a deeply ingrained moral compass. Yet he is constantly plagued by a profound imposter syndrome, acutely aware of his lack of formal education, noble lineage, and material wealth. In stark contrast, young Egg possesses an incredibly sharp, highly educated intellect and an innate understanding of the realm's complex history and heraldry, yet his fragile physical stature and profound lack of real-world practical survival experience make him entirely dependent on Dunk's protection. This constant, intricate push and pull between muscle and mind, experience and innocence forms the core thematic engine of the series, ensuring that even the most mundane logistical challenges, such as securing food for their horses or finding shelter from a torrential downpour, become loaded with character development and narrative stakes. One of the absolute standout moments from this intensive filming period, and a sequence that Dexter Sol Ansell frequently points to as his absolute favorite experience on set, is the highly charged and physically demanding tug-of-war scene. This particular sequence was carefully designed by the directors to serve as a microcosmic representation of the entire relationship between the tall knight and his diminutive squire, requiring a delicate balance of physical comedy, escalating emotional tension, and precise physical choreography. On the surface, the scene involves a literal gritty struggle over resources and authority, showcasing Egg's stubborn, unyielding royal pride clashing directly against Dunk's practical, no-nonsense approach to survival on the road. Filming this specific sequence required multiple takes under challenging weather conditions, forcing both Peter and Dexter to fully invest themselves physically while maintaining a complex emotional subtext beneath their exhaustion. For Dexter, the scene was an absolute joy to execute because it allowed him to fully display Egg's fierce, combative spirit and sharp wit, proving that despite his small size and youthful appearance, the character refuses to be passive or easily intimidated by Dunk's overwhelming physical presence. The sequence beautifully highlights how the two characters constantly challenge, test, and refine each other's worldviews, turning a moment of physical friction into a profound milestone for their growing mutual respect. As the narrative journey progresses further into the heart of the Seven Kingdoms, the underlying tension continues to build, systematically stripping away any remaining romantic illusions about the nature of knighthood and nobility in Westeros. Dunk and Egg find themselves continuously navigating a complex, treacherous web of local rivalries, where old family grudges, border disputes over scarce water rights, and the desperate ambitions of broken men threaten to ensnare them at every turn. The series meticulously illustrates that the lack of grand kingdom-spanning wars does not mean the world is safe. Rather, it means the violence is more localized, personal, and unpredictable. Every small village they enter presents a potential minefield of social codes and hidden dangers, where a single misstep or an accidental revelation of Egg's true identity could instantly result in catastrophe. The overarching cinematic tension is expertly sustained by this pervasive sense of vulnerability, keeping the audience on the absolute edge of their seats as they watch this unlikely duo venture deeper into a volatile landscape where honor is a luxury few can afford, and where the ultimate survival of their profound bond will require every ounce of their combined strength, wit, and unyielding loyalty. The culmination of this journey reveals the true brilliance of why the partnership between Dunk and Egg works so flawlessly, transcending the boundaries of standard fantasy tropes to deliver a deeply human, universally resonant story. When Peter Claffey and Dexter Sol Ansell reflect on the profound core of their characters, they consistently emphasize that the true magic of this pairing lies in a mutual filling of voids, a perfect symbiotic relationship where each individual provides exactly what the other desperately lacks. Dunk, despite his imposing physical stature and martial capability, travels through the world carrying the heavy, invisible burden of a man who feels he does not truly belong in the armor he wears, constantly seeking to justify his existence and prove his worth as a true knight. Young Egg, conversely, carries the heavy burden of an extraordinary heritage that isolates him from the raw, authentic realities of the common people living a life structured by rigid expectations and distant royal obligations. When these two lonely paths intersect on the dusty roads of Westeros, a transformative dynamic is born, creating a safe, emotional space where a young boy can simply be a child learning about the real world. And a wandering hedge knight can find a profound sense of purpose, family, and direction. This profound bond matters immensely because it fundamentally challenges the cynical, power-hungry ethos that typically dominates the narrative landscape of the Seven Kingdoms. It serves as a striking, beautiful proof that even within a world defined by systemic brutality, rigid class structures, and relentless self-interest, genuine honor, unyielding loyalty, and pure, selfless affection can not only survive but actively flourish. Through their shared struggles, small victories, and quiet conversations around flickering campfires, Dunk and Egg create a quiet revolution of character, proving that the true measure of a man's nobility is found not in the ancient lineage of his house or the grandeur of his sigil, but in the steadfast choices he makes when nobody else is watching. The profound historical weight of this journey extends far beyond their immediate survival, casting a massive, illuminating shadow over the future destiny of the entire continent. As the story unfolds, we are witnessing the formative, foundational chapters of two historical figures whose eventual choices will reshape the socio-political fabric of the Seven Kingdoms for generations to come. This traveling education on the margins of society is precisely what will shape Egg into a radically different kind of ruler. A monarch uniquely possessed of deep empathy, first-hand understanding of the common folk, and a fierce determination to protect the vulnerable from the excesses of the high-born nobility. For Dunk, this journey is the grueling, transformative forge that will eventually transform an impoverished, self-taught orphan from Flea Bottom into one of the most legendary, universally revered Lord Commanders of the Kingsguard to ever wear the white cloak. Their shared journey is a beautiful, intricate masterclass in long-term character development, showing how the quiet, seemingly insignificant events of ordinary life, sharing a meager meal of stew, fixing a broken wagon wheel, or defending an unknown peasant's honor, gradually assemble the moral architecture of true greatness. The immense creative success of bringing this nuanced vision to life is a direct testament to the extraordinary, harmonious collaboration between the passionate production crew and the remarkably talented cast. Showrunner Ira Parker's visionary dedication to maintaining structural integrity and emotional authenticity, fostered during his intensive creative pilgrimage with George R.R. Martin, provided the perfect narrative blueprint for the entire team to follow. Peter Claffey's remarkably grounded, deeply empathetic portrayal of Dunk perfectly captures the fragile vulnerability beneath the towering physical exterior, creating an instantly relatable hero for whom the audience cannot help but root. Simultaneously, Dexter Sol Ansell's astonishingly mature, fiercely energetic performance as Egg breathes vibrant, unforgettable life into a complex character who must seamlessly balance the arrogant pride of his hidden birthright with the wide-eyed innocence of youth. The profound gratitude expressed by fans across the globe toward Peter, Dexter, and Ira is immensely well-deserved, as they have successfully managed to capture lightning in a bottle, delivering an atmospheric, emotionally gripping adaptation that honors the past while forging its own unique, indelible legacy. As the final echoes of their footsteps fade down the open road and this chapter comes to a definitive close, the lingering image of the towering knight and his small, bald squire remains deeply etched in our collective minds. They stand as a timeless beacon of hope, companionship, and integrity in a world that is often dark and unforgiving, reminding us all that the greatest, most enduring adventures are not always found in the grand, sweeping halls of kings, but in the unbreakable bonds we forge with one another along the unpredictable journey of life.